Hello, hello, everybody. I'm a couple minutes early. I'm just going to hang out and wait for the strike of noon to come. And I'm going to practice my share, actually, while we're doing this. I lied. I want to stop sharing. Hold, please. Oh, there we go. And then I'm gonna open this, and now I'm going to stop the share so we are ready to rock and roll once everybody joins. Okay. All right. Hopefully everybody can see that. All right. So I'm going to hang out a couple minutes. Okay. It is 12 sharp, and I am going to give us just a minute or two for guests to join, and want to welcome you here to, I've called it a couple things. It's my free course on learning how pleasure is your best self-care plan, is your best business plan. And indeed, statistics are showing that the more pleasure you add to your daily life, the less stress you're going to have, the better your sleep is going to be, the sort of calmer your relationships will become. So I'm excited to bring it to you. So we're going to take another just minute to see who may join us and launch right in. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to do a brief introduction. My name is Gabrielle Garofalo. I am a life coach. I am an entrepreneur. I have been in the life coaching space for more than 2 years. I am delighted that I have had the pleasure of working with some incredible life coaches, including the most glorious Susan Hyatt, who has written a book called Bear, in which I am becoming certified in her Bear process, which is, I'll just pull the book out for you real quick, which is her 7-week program to transform your body, get more energy, let me read it properly, feel amazing, and become the bravest, most unstoppable version of you, which is awesome. And I was originally a student of Bear, and now I'm super excited to be becoming a certified coach in that process, because it has really changed my life for the better in so many areas. And when I ventured into that work, I really hadn't anticipated becoming a Bear coach, because I was working with Susan as an entrepreneur, working on some of my other businesses, but I'm delighted to have found myself in my latest venture as life coach. So, all right, let's jump in. So I'm going to do a screen share. I created a little presentation for you. I hope you like it. I'm just going to ditch my sweatshirt back there, which I'm finding really visually distracting. It is not pleasurable. Okay, here we go. So there we go. Hope everybody can see that and see me. So welcome to Poppin the Pleasure. I've also called it the Pleasure Principle, and we're going to dive right in. A little bit more about me. Again, I'm Gabrielle Garofalo. Thank you so much for coming to spend about 30 minutes with me to learn how pleasure has changed my life and has actually increased revenue, increased peace of mind. I'm feeling more and more like myself all the time, which I think is so important, and is my purpose as a coach, is to help other women and men feel more themselves. So coach, entrepreneur, I also write a food and drink blog, which I hope you will follow. It's called A Lady Walks Into a Bar. Right now it's focused on Monmouth County restaurants and bars, and it's super fun, and it publishes on Jersey Bites. So I hope you will check it out. Also an avid paddleboarder, feminist, and I am doing a triathlon sprint this summer, which I am finding great pleasure in training and challenging myself. I am not a resolutions person per se, but I am a believer in picking an amazing word. Last year, my word was unapologetic, and this year, my word is unstoppable, and I have a feeling it's going to be my word from here on out. A couple of gentle reminders. First of all, this is your 30 minutes. I'm taking my time to teach you guys for 30 whole minutes, and I hope that you take the time that you deserve to get quiet, minimize your distractions, close the office door, ask the kids to watch a show, close your tabs, shut your phone. I'll give you guys a minute to do it. Gonna go to the pleasure go-tos. This is what most people answer when I ask people, what do you consider like pleasure? And they'll be like, oh my God, a mound of French fries and gravy, or a couple of beers, or what have you. And I think what's so interesting about all four of these things is that in the work that I've done, I've come to learn that those things can also be numbing things, which actually take us out of touch with what we're seeking and what we really need, as far as an expression of pleasure or giving to yourself. And I find that these are pretty common. So I just want you to sort of think about if that's true or not for you. And then as a linguist, I love to do definitions. So I'll just read it for anybody who doesn't feel like reading. Pleasure is a noun defined as desire, inclination, a state of gratification, sensual gratification, frivolous amusement, a source of delight or joy. Now, I ask you, who does not want to experience a source of delight or joy at least once a day? Think about that. And what I love about pleasure and the principle of pleasure is that it takes so little effort when you honor your true pleasure craving. So I'm going to take us through so many things I think that we miss when we try and think about pleasure. We so often think it's like some selfish act, but I'm here to tell you that it actually is life affirming. So the first part is I'm going to take you through the types of pleasure, because when I first started doing this work, I wasn't aware about how simple actually pleasure could be outside of those numbing things. Like I'm a big food, I love to resort to food when I'm sort of seeking pleasure. I've really learned that for me, it's actually a different pleasure I'm sometimes seeking when I go to food. So I'll get into that in a minute. And it was also the thing that struck me that really drove me toward wanting to become a bear coach for women, because I think our relationship with our bodies and with food and with, you know, the societal pressures of how we're supposed to look has gotten way out of control. So I want to help sort of undo a bunch of that in my work there. Okay, so pleasure types, are you ready? Fun and entertainment. Who doesn't love, well, maybe not everybody loves Beyonce, but I love me some Beyonce. And fun and entertainment comes in all sorts of things, right? It could be bowling. It can be playing tennis. It could be watching a movie or going to a show. But I think, you know, these are ways that we can experience pleasure. And that is a good one to think about when you're, you know, the reason I'm taking you through these principles is so that you can start to get in closer touch with what kind of pleasure are you craving. Are you craving adventure? Don't have to be like ziplining in this insanity, but you know, maybe it's some other sort of adventure that challenges you physically or mentally or otherwise. I know people are really into, what are they called? The escape room. Like that would be an expression of adventure. Is it trying something new, you know, sports wise? Is it trying a new activity like, you know, flamenco dancing? I don't know, but adventure can be really decided by the pleasure seeker. We all are familiar with the sensual. I think that in particular, there's a particular group of people who gravitate towards sensuality as pleasure. I think it's the most evident one for us adults. We've touched on food and drink. Certainly that can be a pure pleasure craving, and one in which, as a food blogger, I really do spend a lot of time focusing on. Love this one. Spiritual, right? Sometimes we just need to be connected to God or our higher power or our own inner spirituality. Whatever that is for you, getting quiet and focusing on what connects you to that is super important. It's my favorite picture. Comfort. Sometimes it is, so this for me, I love to drink out of this mug when I'm doing a course, because do you see it? It's the most insanely adorable unicorn. Can you see? I don't want to spill my tea, but like, can you see the horn there? Anyway, to me, sometimes comfort is drinking hot tea in a great mug with this that no longer has the honey spoon on it, but this is a lavender honey spoon that I treat myself to. So I'm going to just take a sip while we focus on that beautiful and adorable picture of a kitten. So I invite you over the next day, 2, 3 days to start to explore these different kinds of pleasure. And some of us really love to experience pleasure in nature environment. I am really blessed that I live in Monmouth County, New Jersey, and I am surrounded by ocean and woods and farmland, all within a 10-mile drive of my home, and get to experience a lot of different expressions of nature and environmental pleasure. So no matter where you live, just sometimes being outside in the air is pleasurable. So I'm going to pause for a second, and I'm going to stop the share just so that I can look at all y'all again. And I'm going to take you through some principles of pleasure. But again, over the next week, take a minute. I will post this presentation as well on my website. So for people who want to download it, you can have access to it. I think that we spend a lot of time telling ourselves we don't have time to indulge in pleasure, or we don't have time to work out. There's all sorts of things that we make excuses not to have time for. And I think that's true if you say it is. And if what you say is you're committing to give yourself one 15-minute segment of pleasure every day until it becomes more of a pattern for you. I mean, listen, good habits, bad habits all got developed because we've done them over time. So what if we started course correcting and using some pleasure as an example to integrate new behaviors into your everyday? So chew on that while I go back to my screen share. All right. The 7 considerations. Makes my kids crazy when I do that little like click in my, I don't know what that is anyway. It's pleasure for me. Okay. Ask yourself, what do I crave? I just took you through a bunch of different kinds of pleasure. So get in touch with yourself. And then check yourself, because we will lie to ourselves. We will say we're craving Dorito, like an entire bag of Doritos, because that is pleasure to us. But what we really need is sleep. And I mentioned earlier that this was a revelation for me. There's so many times I will reach for something for my mouth, especially at night, when I really need is rest or comfort. So ask yourself, like, is what you think you want really what you want, or do you need to maybe look into something else? And if you gravitate toward one kind of pleasure, I would invite you to check out the other kinds of pleasure. Maybe, up the comfort and decrease the alcohol, or up the environmental and lower the body movement. Sensual also, I want to just touch on that for a second, isn't just sex. Sensual is about body and the senses of your body. So to me, a sensual expression of pleasure is also working out. So just open up your mind about that kind of thing. And give yourself permission, again, that we're not talking like hedonistic, crazy behaviors, right? We're not like jumping off the reservation. We are just giving ourselves a moment, 15 minutes, to experience something solely to feed our soul. And I'm telling you, these studies are unbelievable, how hormonal levels in women are starting to even out the more pleasure that you have in your daily. How you will suddenly have an incredible amount of energy, or a person that usually gets on your nerves is a little less irritating, or you're sleeping better, or you're waking up with energy. So give yourself the permission. I really am excited to see what starts to pop for you. Practice makes practice. So don't like the word perfect so much, but do it on the daily, because again, it's a new behavior you're trying to build. And with new behaviors, they always take a little bit of practice and focus. So I invite you to do it at least for a week or two and see what starts to shake up. Explore every type. I didn't give you those awesome visuals for nothing. This I'm going to pause on for a second. See what shows up and feel. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about some pleasure for me that's around fun and entertainment. And I've always been a singer, and I gave up singing for a long time, and I finally have gotten back to doing it on a regular basis, certainly on the daily, but I perform out, I'm going to say about once a week, most weeks. And I got home after the first or maybe the second time I had performed, and I literally just like was feeling incredibly emotional. So what starts to come up for us is, I think what came up for me was I was so joyful, like overwhelmingly filled with gratitude and joy, that I could go into a place with talented musicians and get on stage and sing and not be completely booed and pelted with rotten fruit. So that was like a huge win. And to also feel the sadness of having given up something I had so much passion for so long, because I told myself I couldn't, or it wasn't a career, or I needed to, be more serious, or moms aren't supposed to do that, or whatever, all the things we tell ourselves about stuff that is just not true. So see what shows up. You might feel really uncomfortable exploring certain kinds of pleasure. Maybe you're having sensuality disconnect with your partner, or, maybe you're dealing with a health issue that makes certain things more challenging for you. So be gentle with yourself, really feel your feelings, because one of my favorite quotes, which I'm probably going to mess up, is one sure way to hang on to an emotion is not to feel it. So, if you're one of those people who's like, no, I'm not going to feel it. It's like, no matter where you go, there you are. So maybe take some time to feel what's showing up. Okay, I'm going back to the share. Okay. And number 7, immediate return on investment, people. Seriously. I mean, like, there is no downside to adding pleasure to your day. So let's just wrap our heads around that for 1 second. And they're the 5 pleasure principles I developed. Oh my God, it's 12:17 already. So I'm going to wrap it up soon. But first we're going to go through these. Keep it simple. Again, 15 minutes on the daily isn't a huge amount to ask for. And I think, ask of yourselves. And I think that keeping it simple at first is super important, right? Like if your adventure is that you want to go hang gliding and you live in a place that is not feasible, maybe lower the bar for yourself and get into something that you can start to do right away. Like don't put it off. So keeping it simple is sort of important, especially if you're not used to the practice and the exercise of giving yourself some pleasure every day. Try the Martha Beck 3 Bs. I just finished one of her books. She is an incredible life coach whom I had the pleasure of working with back in 2012 as I continue to recover from being a marketing executive. There I am with the Oprah Winfrey. And her life coach, one of her life coaches is Martha Beck. And Dr. Martha Beck is an amazing scholar, Harvard grad, and graduate school, I believe, or maybe she went to some place even more impressive than Harvard. Forgive me for not knowing exactly. And she has developed what she calls the 3 Bs, which is bag it, better it, or barter it. And bag it, you can pretty much figure out what that is. What is in your life on the daily that you can just stop doing? I used to do a ton of volunteer work around my kids and at school, and they're still fairly young. They're still 12, 14, and then the eldest is 27, not so much. But, I've stopped volunteering when it doesn't feel like pleasure to me. When it feels like work or it's an activity that I don't want to do, I'm not going. It doesn't serve me, doesn't serve the pleasure of my kids, and it certainly, isn't being true to myself. So that's just one example of bagging it. The other thing is better it. I'm having like this love-hate with my laundry room because I actually don't mind doing laundry, but the space is really confined. So I engaged, the family, and I am improving that room by painting it a really cool color, getting rid of a sort of wall of hanging stuff where my kids drop all their stuff, and I'm turning that into a folding table with lavender scent and some music and things that just make my experience about doing laundry, which is a necessity, more pleasurable. So, think about what you have to do all the time, like washing dishes or whatever. Do you put on music? Do you spray a scent in the room that makes you feel good? Do you light a candle? So think about, again, keeping it simple in how you can better things that you sort of are hating right now. And then barter it. What can you do for someone else to get them to do something for you that you just ain't into, right? It might be a carpool barter. It might be you cook for someone and they do your ironing. I don't know. There's a million ways of bartering. And I know guys are great at this. Like, I'll come power wash your house with you if you come and fix my deck, lattice with me. I don't know. There's all sorts of ways that we can barter. So get creative. Focus your thoughts and focus on your thoughts. What are you telling yourself about pleasure in your life? Was pleasure seeking encouraged when you were a kid? What were your parents modeling? What's going on with your family of origin around pleasure? And is there anything you need to unthink, right? Just because we think something doesn't mean it's true. So check in with yourself. I'm a fan of journaling, so if you want to jot down your thoughts, I think that is a very powerful way to check in with yourself. So be consistent, right? On the daily, it's repetitive for a reason. The more we do it, the more common it will become in our routines. And that's so important. And the last one is to have some fun, because this is about a little bit of whimsy, right? We forget as adults sometimes, I think, how to have fun. I mean, most people who know me know that that's not true for me. I have big fun factor, but I think, life is serious and things can be difficult and we are challenged with all sorts of things. And I know from my own experience and from everybody I've ever known and loved that there are all sorts of strains. There are health strains, and our children have issues, and there's financial pressure, and there's societal pressure, and there's Facebook and Instagram, and like the constant bombardment of all of these perfect lives that are complete bullshit. And we all know it's true. So, have some fun with it and don't get caught up in what someone else defines as pleasure. You don't need to subscribe to anybody else's philosophy around this, but your own. And I think getting closer and truer to your own self is about blocking out some noise. And I think it's the hardest part. It's certainly been a wonderful challenge on my journey. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody wants to give you input. Everybody comes from their own personal experiences in place, which, shades opinions, and people function from really interesting places. So I think the importance of being true to yourself is important. Having fun is super important, but also blocking out the noise, because this may make some people in your world uncomfortable the more they see you exploring different things. So be kind to yourself for sure. And then before we wrap, I just want to invite you to join me for my new program, Bear It All, Sizzling Summer Body Love. This is going to be a program where I take y'all through the bear process. I know it's only a 7-week process. I like to do an 8th week for a wrap up, and I do like to give all of my clients the opportunity to share. The great thing about working with me in this process is that it's really not just about changing your body or losing weight. If that's something you're up to, awesome. I'm here to help you. But it is also about, are you up to any shift in your life? Is there stress in your family or a relationship that you're working to heal? Is there something going on in your career that needs to move around? Are you unhappy with where you live and the environment you're in? The fascinating thing to me as a bear student and now as a bear coach is that this process and just engaging in some of the principles that Susan has created has changed everything in my life. When I modeled in her book as just like a regular old person last summer, and I thought I looked damn good, which I did look damn good. And I was in a much bigger body than I am now, which is all to say, and I was feeling awesome, obviously. I modeled in my nakedness for this book, which was supposed to be a marketing campaign that ended up in a book, and I'm sure it will be a bestseller because Susan is that fierce and that talented, and this message is so important. But I have felt so much more myself than I have in so many years. And so I just, want to invite everybody to consider what that might be like for you to feel a little bit more of yourself. And before I part, this will all be on my website in the next couple of days. I will get it live. I'm kicking off July 7th to let all those mamas out there who just need to sort of settle their kids after school ends in the next week or so, get through the 4th of July, and then let's get to it. Let's get to transforming your life for the better, and for you loving the skin you're in a little bit more. And I would be so blessed to work with you. So thanks for your time today, and thanks for coming to talk about pleasure. And I hope that you all got something out of it. And I will look forward to coming back to you again soon and bringing you some more free stuff. And wish you a glorious day. Peace.